Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar, brought to you by sharedserviceslink and sponsored by Taulia. Today, we will be looking at the path to 100% e-invoicing adoption, and we'll be looking at the graphic packaging story. My name is Sarah Fain, and I am the Head of Research at sharedserviceslink, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Becky Morgan, who is the Operations Support Coordinator at Graphic Packaging, and Jenny Wampler, the Director of Solutions Consulting at Taulia. Touching briefly on the agenda for today, I'll open up just exploring a little bit about the context for the webinar today, why we're all tuned in here. I'll then hand you over to Becky, who will give you some more insight into the graphic packaging e-invoicing story. She'll then hand over to Jenny from Taulia, who will give you a technology demo. So touching on the context for today, as many of you will be familiar with, when manual and paper invoices processes are the norm, accounts payable departments struggle with a few things. One is this poor visibility into their operations, and another is struggling to track their cash flow. Moving away from manual invoice processing and adopting e-invoicing is just one way to get companies off paper and to really modernize their finance and their procure-to-pay processes. In this webinar, we will explore how Graphic Packaging developed a world-class e-invoicing strategy and how they were able to get 100% of their in-scope suppliers adopting e-invoicing. And we'll learn a little bit more about how this has improved Graphic Packaging's operations. So with that, I now hand you over to Becky from Graphic Packaging.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm Becky Morgan. I've been at Graphic Packaging for a little over 5 years. I started in our accounts payable department and transitioned into our operations support when we implemented our Taulia program. We're going to take a quick look at our agenda for the day and some of the highlights that we're going to touch on. Some of these will be brief, some of them we're going to spend a little more time on our e-invoicing strategies. Like I said, I'm with Graphic Packaging. It is the leader in the packaging industry. Our headquarters are in Atlanta, Georgia. Our shared services are in West Monroe, Louisiana, where I am located today. As you may not know us by name, but you probably touch our product every day. You can take a quick look at this map and see that some of our global locations and customers and recognize many of these brands that you probably have in your households. We're going to peek into our 2015 APAR metrics real quick. For AP, we had 2.3 billion AP disbursements, roughly around 368,000 invoices processed. For AR, we had 2.6 billion AR cash receipts, roughly about 40,000 payments received, with an AP AR cross-functional team of 25 and a cost per invoice of $372. Okay, now let's take a journey into our pre-to-post automation. If you're like me, this is what my desk looked like beforehand. We had multiple mergers and acquisitions and built a vendor portal, e-invoicing platform, and automated processes will continue to move us towards a world-class AP organization and form a true solution to the increasing workload without doubling our staff. We reached out to Taulia and chose them because of their e-invoicing capabilities, their free supplier interface, and the way that they were able to integrate with our SAP and ReadSoft software we were already using. We set out to have some specific project goals to determine a strategy that would work best for our department. This is a look into the top requirements that we had going in, the things that we wanted to focus on. One is reduce the number of hours spent on non-value-added phone calls, reduce our third-party imaging expenses, increase our e-invoicing opportunities for our suppliers, choose a platform that's integrated. Well, like I said, our SAP ReadSoft, so we didn't have to manage something on top of that. And then we wanted to designate a vendor service team to handle our implementation and the platform support. Now, a day in the life. As we all know, paper processing and loose guidelines in our AP can cause headaches, wasted time in your workday. These are some of the heavier challenges that we were facing as a department. We had numerous supplier inquiries, vendor calls, continually pulling us away from processing, varying information outlets where there was no uniform method for our suppliers to understand a true submission into accounts payable. They were also sending through multiple avenues, turning in to various outlets within the company, making AP receive invoices much later than on time, missing invoices, which comes with emailing, scanning, anything that comes through the mail. There's no accountability through those processes, and then manual verifying. The program we were using causing us to go in and visually verify each invoice before it hit the system. All of this taking huge chunks of our day outside of being able to process. After the result of our transitioning to the Taulia supplier portal, we feel made a huge impact on our team. The visibility into our vendor account alone cleared the majority of our inquiries coming into our department. The invoicing also reduced transition time, allowing documents to enter immediately into the processor's queue, which cleared out a multitude of our submission issues, whether that be lost, missing, hung up somewhere in the median. So all of these made a huge impact on our day-to-day processes. Through that, we heavily moved into our implementation of the e-invoicing. We fleshed out many of our strategies we use today during testing. I can only recommend that you test. Take advantage of the meetings that you'll have with your platform host. Create a partnership to work through the problems. We had a designated time that we set aside to use in order to flush through the problems that we were having with our implementation team to have strategies to move forward successfully. So this is what has brought us to where we are today. Some of our highlighted items that we feel are the backbone of our program. We have about 5 listed for our strategies for e-invoicing that I feel truly make us move full steam ahead. So our dedicated point person. This is an individual that we chose one person to lead this. We started out with multiple, but we felt like things were getting lost in the crosshairs. So we have a dedicated point person that we set up as a partner with our Inbox by Taulia rep, who is our point person at Taulia for all of our e-invoicing setups. That way everything passes through this funnel and no communications are lost. We also use the business-centric questionnaire. We received a sample of this from Taulia, kind of like a basis to start with. We adjusted it to make it a little more streamlined for our business case and the information that we would need for our suppliers so we can launch them properly and what e-invoicing avenue would best fit our business needs. We also do vendor analysis and research. I don't want to call a supplier about e-invoicing if they're coming through ERS. So if they're on another avenue, if we pay by P-card, if they're on a different program, we definitely want to know that going in. So we try to look at our in-scope vendors. What does that include? Maybe not all locations, but maybe some. So our vendor analysis and research, I feel, is very important. Supplier education. Okay, maybe I feel all of these are important. Supplier education is also important. We like to review the product capabilities with them. What does it mean to do a true e-invoicing method? How the responsibility for submission becomes theirs. We find that most of our suppliers truly love this side, and they just need to understand it more, how to manage a failed submission report, what happens if your invoice that you created comes back to you, and how do you fix your errors. I think it's important to work with your suppliers through the process, as it also is very new to them. And then continual communication. We like to have frequent contact through the whole setup with our suppliers. So with them, as they have questions, like I said, giving them education. And then with our Inbox by Taulia rep, what problems are they running into? Is there more information needed? Are there more samples needed? Do we need to test? Anytime that you keep a continual communication, it helps you resolve issues as they arise. It also keeps you in the forefront of their mind so they know that the e-invoicing solution is important. Now, a quick snapshot of what we feel like we have accomplished since we've gone live. So with our business plan, we based 100K invoices projected for the first year. We looked to reach this in the first 10 months of our go live. We also moved all of our in-scope high-volume suppliers to the Taulia platform. We transitioned all our supplier communications off of our processors, which again was huge, through the Taulia portal and the vendor service team. Our vendor service team helps to clear up issues like the education, the training, if they need to understand how they go in, they find things they need in their portal. We also work the message board, which is part of the integration into our SAP. So that keeps all these communications in one place and also the processors in order for them to do what they need to do. We also continue to work to direct 100% of the all paper and email suppliers through one of the 3 e-invoicing solutions. We feel like overall we were able to take our project goals and meet those within our first year of go live. So a little advice or what to do next. This is kind of where we are now. We want to continue the growth of our supplier enrollment. So we have not reached 100%, but that's where we're targeted. So we still today continue to enroll suppliers into their portal, work with them on their e-invoicing submissions, get them set up. We want to become more of an internalization and commitment to the success of our program. So we reach out to our buyers and requisitioners and commodity managers and anybody in your company and supply chain where you want Taulia to be a win for your whole company. So we are working now to push out more internal education. So that's just not maybe coming from accounts payable, but it's coming from everywhere, and it's a sale and a win for everybody. So with that, I guess, leads into the third one, where we want to transform accounts payable into a reactive role and not a proactive role in the evolution of our P2P process. So get vendors in on the forefront. We want to have them come in as a new supplier, go ahead and say, this is how you find your payment information. This is how you invoice the company on the very front end, and not 60 days later they're looking for payment and they've not been told anything about our supplier portal in e-invoicing. We want to catch them at the very beginning. We also want to create and utilize tools to enable suppliers to maximize the capabilities of the portal. So they don't know that it has invoice capabilities, if they can print out all their statement, just anything that comes in, we want our suppliers to get the full effect of that, to be able to manage their whole account right there inside of our platform. So we're working on education with the Taulia tools that they provide to push that out there. Key takeaways. So at this point, I think that a clear and set, obtainable project goals, our e-invoicing solutions, any automated strategies that you want to have for your company, get those on paper, come together at the table, set some down. Where are we? What do we want to move forward in? Where do we feel like we need help? And what dynamics do we want to have that change our department? From there, you want to create an implementation guideline. What's your business case? What are your system functionalities? Get with your Inbox by Taulia representative that they will set up all of your suppliers, and what are you looking for to get out of that? What platforms did you want to use to move your suppliers through PDF or EDI or any of the methods that they supply? And then establish a knowledgeable and dedicated internal team. I would say that this was a huge success that we were able to pull myself and another processor to really sink full in. So neck deep, we jumped in. We're going to learn it. We're going to train it. We are able to move full steam ahead for our enrollments, not just as a side job or as we had time, but to give everything we had to the program and internally train from in that. I think that's a huge part of the success of the program. Now, I believe at this point, Jenny at Taulia is going to show you this in action.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Becky. That was great to hear the graphic packaging story and have you take us through your journey. And so now I'm going to show my screen of working with graphic packaging. So my supplier's name is Jen. She works for the ABC company and does business with graphic packaging. What you'll see here is a menu path across the top, similar to icons across the middle of the screen. So no matter how your supplier learns, whether it's menu-based or icon-based, we can get them to the right direction. What I'm showing here is all of Taulia modules turned on. So we do supply modular. So you heard a lot about what Becky talked about, what really works for graphic packaging right now. Supplier self-service, which you see in the My Details section. Requesting and viewing changes to address, bank account, tax ID, certifications, contacts. Looking at customer relationships. So how many business units does this supplier Jen go across at graphic packaging? Compliance settings.
Graphic packaging also uses the inbox by Taulia, so the invoicing, both searching invoices and creating invoices. In addition to that, we have a PO delivery module called My POs. We have the My Payments or remittance section where we will show your supplier all the payments with all the invoices attached, and I'll dive into that. And then we have our dynamic discounting or supply chain finance module, which you'll see by the cash planner, and across the middle of the screen, the early payment offers. So we'll also dive into that. In addition to the menus and the icons, you can see across the top, a supplier can change clients, so they can bounce between graphic packaging and Coca-Cola and Home Depot. However many customers they're dealing with on the Taulia network, with their one login and password, they can get to those different companies, and based on which modules they have applied, they can get to the different functionality. We also have a help button. We have a help button on every single screen. This sends your supplier to Taulia. You heard Becky say, stop vendor phone calls, stop vendor inquiries. We do that with the portal. We also do it with our help button. We have a team of support personnel across the world covering all Taulia suppliers and customer users with questions from anything of how do I reset my password to what does dynamic discounting mean, how do I do it, how can we benefit from it. So very important. So again, this is the home page. And now what I'm going to do is just kind of go through the supply chain a little bit and talk about the different functionality. So let's start first, as Becky mentioned, with supplier information management. So if I go in here, what you can see again is a supplier can go in and let's look at their address. So Jen says, oh, it looks like graphic packaging has my address. We're pulling this from the ERP system. I can see my existing address. I can also create different types of addresses, and this is configuration that you as a customer can decide what's available or not. Maybe I look at my address and I see that something's wrong. Well, instead of picking up the phone and calling Becky at Graphic Packaging or sending her an email, I now can do this through Taulia. So I can open up my address, I can change what I see as wrong, and I can click the next button. Now we suggest that you have required documentation along with these changes, so you can attach a file as a supplier. And again, I'm going to attach my SIM module. I'm going to review and save this. And I see that the suite number has changed. I've got my attachment. I'm going to go ahead and complete and save. Now, how fast was that compared to having to find Becky's number or send her an email, wait till she could reply to me? I've now requested a change to my address. This is now going over to the message board, as Becky mentioned earlier, in SAP or any ERP system that you have. Becky and her team are reviewing the request for change. They're reviewing that attachment. If they approve of it, they click a button that says approve, and it automatically updates their master data in their ERP system. It's really that simple. And then we're monitoring all of this, and we're watching it for audit, so we know who requested that change. We do the same thing for bank account and for tax ID. What's unique with bank account and tax ID is on the bank account, we're actually looking at valid routing numbers. If those don't match, then we kick it back to the supplier and they cannot send that request until they have a valid bank account. On the tax ID, we do the same thing. So we're looking at the IRS database real time. We're giving that feedback back to the supplier and saying, I'm sorry, this doesn't match, and you need to put in the right information and the right attachment. So really great things in the supplier information management section. Now, if you think about supply chain, now we've got our vendor set up, we've got all their master data, it's flowing between the ERP system and Taulia. And now let's talk about supply chain. So the first thing that we can do is PO delivery. So within POs, we can pass a PO to your supplier from your ERP system. Many of you might be doing that today through email or a system of your own. We can do it as well. We pass the PO, we pass invoiced values, statuses across the PO, we can pass those. Becky mentioned ERS, correct. We don't want a supplier doing an invoice on Taulia, but we can show an ERS invoice and PO on the portal for them. If I click into a PO, what you'll see here is basically header and level item information for a PO. The supplier can also do things like confirm a PO. So you can see here I've got a quantity and a date that needs to be confirmed. That information gets passed back again through our automatic interface through SAP or any ERP system that you have, updates the confirmation information so you know what's happening. We can also create advanced shipment notices against POs and attachments. And of course, you can see here with the yellow PO is changed. We're going to show that to the supplier. And we're not only going to show it in the portal, but within their settings, they can opt in and opt out for emails. So depending on what emails they are interested in, you can see here that there's lots of different email settings. So they'll get an email about the information, and then they can log into the portal as well. So that's POs, and now let's get into invoices. This is the part that's really supported and benefited graphic packaging. You saw the 100%. It's an awesome story. Becky's done a great job with her team to get there. Really, what we're talking about are these two icons and this menu path. We can create invoices on the portal, which we call e-flip if it's a PO, or e-form if it's a non-PO. We also have the capability to do e-send, which is a system-generated PDF. We also have e-file, which is an EDI feed, and we can even do e-link, which is an API feed. So through Taulia, we can cover your entire supply base from the small volume up to the large volume. What I'm going to show you today is creating an invoice on the portal, so e-form and e-flip. The other thing we have is my invoices. So Taulia is very unique in that we show 100% of the invoices to the supplier. So maybe you already are on the journey, you're already doing some kind of e-invoicing. That's fantastic. If you want to transition to Taulia, great, but you don't have to, because what we're doing is looking at your ERP system. We're bringing across all those invoices for the supplier to see. We're bringing across statuses, which you can see here. And if you use a workflow system like graphic packaging uses ReadSoft, we can even do sub-statuses within. So within an in-process status, we can do a sub-status within that. Again, the idea is to give as much information as possible to that supplier so they're not picking up the phone and they're not emailing you about what's going on. So you can see here as I hover over an in process, I see that I have some complete verified data information. So that's my invoices. Now let's go in and just create an invoice. So if I click Create Invoice, the first thing I'm given is a list of all my POs that are open and available to create an invoice. Again, this is config we work out with you. Some of these POs or these invoices may require confirmation before I can create an invoice, and that's fine. I'm going to go into this PO and create an invoice. Again, I'm the supplier. I'm easily clicking a button. All the PO information comes across, the payment terms, the PO, any other information that you need. I'm going to go ahead and put in an invoice number, really all I need. I can look at my addresses, and here's my PO line item. So again, we're trying to get rid of exceptions. We are only going to show the PO line items that are available to invoice against to your supplier. So you're not going to get an invoice with 3 items for a PO that only has 2. So in this case, I've got hardware. Let's say I've got 25 pieces of hardware, 15 on the software. We can do a lot of information on these fields. We can do validity checks. We can do price tolerances. We've got the capability to really customize this section for you as far as validity so that you, again, remove those exceptions. We want you to decrease the time for invoice approval and therefore increase your discount opportunity window, and I'll show you that. We also allow additional line items. So everybody usually has some additional line items on their invoice. We allow you to configure that and put validations against that. We allow comments back to the buyer. We allow attachments to be entered. We're constantly looking at compliance as well. So we're compliant in 50+ countries on the e-invoicing side. We're looking at the country of the supplier. We're looking at what's required as far as, sales tax and tax types and VAT. We're making sure that the supplier has the right compliance data on their invoice. Because when I submit this invoice, besides all the validations, we're also creating a legally rendered PDF of this invoice that we will pass back to you in your ERP system, and we will keep on the Taulia system. So now the supplier can use Taulia as their source of record while you continue to use your ERP as your source of record. So we're very proud of all the work that we've put into compliance and have it covered there. So that's a PO flip invoice. We also do non-PO invoices. And we also do credit notes, both PO and non-PO. Just to show you real quickly the non-PO invoice, I would create a non-PO invoice button here on the right. Now what's going to come up is I have to choose which business unit or company code I'm doing business with. Again, what we're trying to do is get all the information we can from your suppliers, so when the invoice comes in, you can quickly route it and approve it. We like to do as much as we can with the supplier information to keep your workload down. So again, I will put in a invoice number. In this case, I don't have a PO. The payment terms come from the vendor master. I can also put in a buyer contact. Maybe I've got a list of buyer contacts that are out there and I have to put this in because it's going to help once you receive this, graphic packaging or any customer to make a better routing or a coding or a project number. And then we give one line item, and they can add more. So, unit of measure, maybe we say it's an hour. I did 4 hours, $125. And I can add more lines if I want. I can also do additional items. Very similar functionality to what you saw in the e-flip, in the PO invoice, and that's on purpose. We want the experience to be very similar for the supplier, but make sure that we're taking all of your validations into account. So again, I can submit the invoice, and off it goes. We're going to do another validation check, make sure it's not a duplicate invoice number, make sure everything else is as you designed it. So now we've got both a PO invoice going through the system and a non-PO invoice. They both immediately flow into SAP or your ERP system. For graphic packaging, they immediately go into the ReadSoft workflow system, set up workflow if required. It may just be an automatic post. And now as you think about it, we've kind of gone through the supply chain. So now I've got this invoice out there and it gets approved. Once it's approved, if you've set up dynamic discounting or supply chain finance with Taulia, we will show the supplier through email and on the portal the status of the invoice, and we'll also offer up a Pay Me Early button. So we have several options to do this. Very basically, they can go invoice by invoice. They click the My Offer button, and they're presented a calendar. This calendar is based on your payment days. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, graphic packaging does a payment run. If I click on these different dates as a supplier, you'll see that instead of getting my $44,796 on August 5th, I can accelerate that payment for a discount. And I have the power as the supplier to decide when I want to accelerate it and what my discount is and what my total payment will be. So I can click through these dates. I choose the one that I like, and I go ahead and hit submit. Because graphic packaging has already set up this program beforehand, it's immediately accepted. I don't have to wait as a supplier a day or two to find out if I got that discount or not. I immediately do. As a supplier, we are going to offer up an offer to enable cash flow, which basically does the My Offer button for them. So after an invoice is approved, we immediately pay it early based on a sliding scale discount. And the supplier can turn this on and off in their settings. So I'm going to say no thanks since it's a demo system. And again, now this discount information is flowing back to the ERP system. It's automatically either updating the invoice or creating a credit note. Again, based on compliance, Taulia is dynamic discount compliant in almost 70 countries, and we're again recognizing the country and the compliance factors that require what needs to be done in your ERP system, and we do it for you, and we show that back to the supplier. We also have a tool around dynamic discounting called Cash Planner. Cash Planner, think of as kind of a batch job of what I just showed you. Instead of Jen, the supplier, going into a bank and asking for money, she knows she's got a relationship with graphic packaging. She can go to the network, she can pick a date out in the future and say, hey, you know what, I really need $250,000 for a new piece of equipment to run payroll, etc. What we do is we look through all approved invoices that are open for early discount, and we figure out the right combination of invoices that Jen, the supplier, should accelerate in order to get as close to that 250 as possible. She has the ability to click a few more invoices to get her up and over that amount, and then she can click Pay Me Early, and we send the request, and again, we're sending that information over on a batch of invoices, which we call Cash Planner. And then again, we'll offer up cash flow to the supplier if they're interested. So that's dynamic discounting. The next step would be graphic packaging runs their payment run. So they run the payment, Taulia immediately sees it, shows it in the portal, gives the supplier an email, and it's under the My Payments button. So within My Payments, we're going to show all the payment runs, and when I click on a payment, I'm going to see the invoices, and let me click one that maybe has a few more invoices on it. Here's an invoice or a payment that was a bank transfer. We've got a total amount and a discount amount, and then we've got every single invoice which I can click on and go see the details of, and what the invoice amount, the discount it was, etc. Suppliers love this tool mainly so that they can download. So they'll come in and they'll download XML, PDF, CSV, Excel. They may upload it into their system. Again, as Becky mentioned, this cuts down on the number of phone calls, both internally and externally, and then the number of inquiries like you can't imagine. So this is a huge benefit. So with that, I'm going to kind of pause. This again is the home page. I talked through the flow chart. So again, I'll talk about supplier information management. We talked about PO delivery, invoices, or what we call Inbox by Taulia. We talked about the discounting and the cash planner, and then we also talked about my payments. The last thing I want to show you, if you're following along on the menu paths, is my customer. So my customer is just a way for you to create some online content, whether it's about Taulia or not. We can help you create this HTML code. We can put videos on here. We can do different instructions. This is a way for your supplier to come out and have information about business specific with graphic packaging. Our help desk will also point suppliers to this section if they need to get some more information, but you completely own this section and you can update it as much as you'd like from the buyer side. So I'm going to stop there and I will pass it back to Sarah.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And also thank you to Becky for a really great presentation there. So I'd like to thank both our speakers for today. There was some great content in here. And again, thank you to all our listeners, and we hope to see you next time.